UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
With this great sporting nation who has yet to embrace fully the world's greatest game, and for so long of trying to have the game accepted. And when I'm up to the big football field in the sky, I just want people just to remember I told you so.
And suddenly the complexion of the game changes. Let's hope it doesn't, but this is the best period for Iran in the match. Danger for Australia here, the flag's down! It's an equaliser!
You just feel for them, not just the boys, they are representative of so many people who make this game their life. It's just, I can't say anything, mate.
All right.
Especially as they have the impetus. Aloisi, Cahill, Tim Cahill has done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill! 2-1 Australia! Oh, it's a wonderful moment in Kaiserslautern! And Tim Cahill has come off the bench and maybe won the match for the Socceroos.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Hello and welcome. Another episode of State of Our Football Nation, and proudly brought to you by GIS, the Global Institute of Sport, as it has done for the better part of the last half a dozen weeks. Joining me, as he does each and every week, is Lachie Flanagan, running the console in our studios, very wet studios in Docklands in Victoria. And yes, for the rest of the country, if you're wondering, it does rain down south of the border. And we're feeling it, and we have been feeling it for quite a few days now.
I don't know. I feel like people in other states would be very aware of the fact that it rains in Melbourne and does so quite often.
No, I don't believe that. I believe over the last couple of years with COVID, what we've done is we've created not one nation, but a bundle of states playing their own game, running their own bureaus, telling their own stories, and pushing their own propaganda. And you know what? Just before we started, you played a gorgeous piece It's one of our promo pieces that we do at FNR and have done for the better part of the last 5 years. Golden moments from the history of the game. And we touched on the voice of Johnny Warren, talking about what the game means to him and what it's meant to him forever and a day. And it was his birthday, only recently. And
it was too.
And I always remember the energy he poured into the game, the wonderful support he provided in the very early days of this platform that morphed and became SBS. And I'm reminded of his words. I'm reminded of the fire and of the energy. And he said, we will get there. We've just got to stop fighting ourselves. And those words resonate more than ever over these last few days, especially with the announcement of a new Socceroos squad and the boys off in the next week or so, or in the next few days, to head off to Qatar to play in the 2022 World Cup.
It does feel sometimes like Australian football is the story of the snake that eats its own tail, isn't it? It just feel like I remember when I was 18 reading the Death and Life of Australian Soccer by Joe Gorman, being someone who knew the NPL and had been to the NPL as a teenager, but nothing more than that. Mostly was an A-League New Dawner. And I couldn't believe how many of the stories I was reading in Joe Gorman's book were stories that I could, if I had changed, the Collingwood Warriors for another A-League team name, how much overlap there would be. It's quite remarkable.
No, it's a very good point that you make. Joe Gorman's book is one of those pieces that came out at a critical time. There was a reason for it. There'd been an awful lot of flack over the fact that we had missed out. That when I say we, Australia's bid for a World Cup down under had missed the boat, and the team or the country that had won it was Qatar. And we all said at the time, wow, where is Qatar? Now, some of us knew where Qatar was. In fact, Australia's young Socceroos played Qatar and lost in I think it was a penalty shootout, way back in 1981. So Qatar and Australia have been linked since then. It's just an interesting time, and the words of Johnny Warren resonate to this day, because he knew, with all the flaws, with all the challenges, that if those who felt it deepest, if they worked hardest, then we would get a foothold. It's going to take time.
Well, I think that's the important thing, isn't it, George? That we are working to address many of these things as best we possibly can.
Can I tell you, one of the most exciting things, there's been an awful lot of debate over the last few days about a number of players who didn't get picked or haven't been chosen or have chosen not to make a decision about whether to play for Australia or not. Now, I've been hearing this for the better part of 40 years. Yeah,
it's not not a new story.
No, it's not a new story. It's an old story that we decide to churn out because suddenly it seems fresh and new, and so vital and important. You know what's the most exciting story of the whole election process or selection process?
Tell me.
That a young guy called Garen Quoll, who a year or so ago was playing at Shepparton, and not too many people.
It was less than 2 years ago that he was an NPL under-20s player.
And how old is he now?
Oh, sorry, I say NPL under-20s, NPL 2 under-20s for Goulburn Valley.
And how old was he then?
16, 17.
There you go. That to me is the most exciting story, because he's the new member on the totem pole of countries, or immigrants that have come to this country and have added to the game. We've had it for years. They were from the Balkans, they were from Greece, they were from Italy, they were from England, they were from Scotland, they were from Wales, and suddenly we've got a young boy from Sudan who's making his presence felt, and has done it in such a meaningful way that this time next year he may well be, and I'm more ever the optimist, he may well be playing for Newcastle in the English Premier League. And then it goes, he may not be. But the promise, the hope, it's there. And it's invigorating. It's seriously exciting. But before we get that, let's talk about the game, as we tend to do on State of Our Football Nation each and every week. And we've had the good fortune over the last number of weeks to have some special guests join us and add to the conversation. And we can do the same again today in this episode, because there was an initiative that Football Australia got itself involved with early on, and it was to talk with the referees and to talk with those who are running the game in this country, and to find consensus and to find a level of intervention that the referees would address and try and stick to from the beginning of the competition to the very end. And we talk about consistency. You're always talking about it, how important it is. And we thought we'd go to the very top. And we've gone, how fortunate are we? Football Australia's head of referees, Nathan Magill, joins us via Zoom from Sydney. Nathan, welcome to FNR and to State of Our Football Nation.
Thanks for having me, George. Great to be here.
Mate, this initiative that was run about a week and a half or so ago was, I thought, telling, and it was also very instructive. It gave me a sense of just how hard people were working behind the scenes to make the most difficult of things as consistent as possible, and that is calling the game and refereeing the game. And give us a sense of whose idea it was and how enthusiastic you guys have been to get involved.
Yeah, it's a great question, George, and I think it's been an ongoing discussion since we commenced building a referees department now at Football Australia following the unbundling about 12 months ago. Was one of the priorities that we wanted to see implemented was to give the refereeing department a voice, but also allow us to be transparent with the general public who crave that understanding of why our team make the decisions in which they do.
They demand it.
Yeah, they do. And Twitter is the greatest forum of all for that, right? Yeah. That's the court of public opinion. But I feel that, this has been an evolving process, and it was something that has been on the table for a while, and it's something that our department and our referees have been ultra enthusiastic about us doing. So ultimately, we saw it as a no-brainer, to be fair, to be able to give the public a little bit more insight through our media outlets, but then also allow our referees and our team who coach the referees to provide more explanation as to why we were doing certain things like the football KPIs or, priority areas like we have for this year.
Nathan, do you guys speak to other jurisdictions, namely the EPL? Because I know we have Jared Gillett already now officiating, and has been for the better part of the last 12 months. And he was one of those young referees that we got to see give us access to the game like never before, when Fox Sport decided, or Foxtel gave us a sense to hear him calling a part of the game and talking to his fellow linesmen during the actual contest, which was most illuminating.
Yeah, we have a really strong relationship, George, with the EPL at the moment. I speak to my counterpart semi-regularly over there around, initiatives or challenges that we face within the game, and they're not too dissimilar to the challenges that we face. So we speak quite frequently. I'm also in heavy connection with the Dutch and the Major League Soccer as we're looking to innovate VAR at a global level. But then also we speak to our counterparts in AFC, and around about 8 months ago, we brought in what we have as a referees committee, which is a FIFA statuted committee to provide oversight to the referees department. And we brought in a global expert by a guy of the name of Ray Olivia, who has worked with the Premier League, worked with the JFA, and worked with the Asian Football Confederation to give us a more global look at how we run our department.
The EPL decided that it was going to ask more of its referees this year than last year. They said to them the level of interruption would be pulled back. They wanted a little bit more contact included. They wanted not so much the ticky-tack stuff to get a free kick, although they still wanted to protect the playmakers. And this is something that you guys made very clear to us, and I'm talking about the assorted media that joined you for this special discussion, this initiative set up by Football Australia. That was most interesting to me, that you're talking at that level. You might like to explain it to our audience.
Yeah, it's a great level, or it's a great part of my job to be able to discuss football, because ultimately referees, like everyone, we love the game. We've been involved for a long time. So for me to be able to talk to my counterparts about how we make the game better for the fan, for the coach, for the player, and for our officiating team is actually a really exciting part about the job. Now, after the scrutiny the last couple of weeks, we could debate how exciting my job has been. But with this part of the job, it's actually been really exciting to talk about how we find that level of intervention, how we still protect the players who play the ball and people come to watch and see each week. And that is a challenge that globally people are trying to get right at every level.
Now, we've got a World Cup and we've got a squad of Australian referees heading out, not only to represent themselves, but more importantly, their country.
Yeah, they left late last night. They departed for Qatar as they're heading over for their preparations now. I've spoken to majority of them overnight, and the level of intensity is probably something that they've never been experienced to before, although they've been very, very experienced match officials. You know, Chris in particular has done a Club World Cup final and a final of an Olympic tournament, which was the first time since 1954 that an Australian match official whistled the final of the Olympics. So, our guys are really well prepared. They've worked together in teams throughout the A-League season over the last 12 months. I'm really, really confident that they'll perform at the highest level when they get there.
One of those referees who will be making the journey to Qatar, who's originally from Iran but has been in Australia since 2019, of course, is Ali Reza Fagani. Does bringing, does having someone like Ali Reza come down to Australia, or there might have been other circumstances that led to it, with his experience, has that been a boost to the referees team? Is the idea of having more experienced referees in future to tap into the knowledge of something that you see as being important? I'm curious to know what you've made of his impact as he's come to Australia.
His contribution, yeah.
Yeah, I think that the team generally have loved having Ali part of the group. He's a very experienced AFC referee at that continental level with Champions League, but also this is Ali's third World Cup. So he's not an inexperienced match official. He's a very experienced guy. He brings a different perspective to a different level of football and a different type and style of football that he was used to in his native country. So, having Ali gives us a different perspective. But in saying that too, we also, aside from the on-field team, we've got an experienced group of referee coaches who have had that global level. So everyone, I think, would remember Eddie Lenny from the 98 World Cup. Eddie forms part of our coaching team and provides that, insight and experience to our referees on a weekly basis. We also tap into FIFA and AFC to bring out international instructors for our group as required too. So we're not insular about our approach to the game. We feel that we're actually reaching out globally more than ever before.
One thing you mentioned before, Nathan, that I'd like to expand on. You talked about how you're conversing with a number of other refereeing bodies from the Premier League, from MLS, and AFC too, and discussing different things. One of those subjects would obviously be VAR and its interpretation. I'm wanting to sort of get a read on how you as the head of referees see VAR, its place in football. What do you think is great about it now? What needs to be improved? Where do we want to take it? Because I'd love to get a referee's consensus on where it's headed, because it feels sometimes in the public, the court of public opinion, as you mentioned
and
before.
This is a commentator speaking to you, Nathan.
This is as someone who wants to.
You're speaking your brain, which is good. No. Fine.
Yeah, it just feels like sometimes compared to you guys in the court of public opinion, the interpretation of VAR and what it's supposed to be is very, very muddled. Whereas you guys know exactly what it's to be used for and where you'd like to take it from here, because it is still an emerging technology, and new technologies are always going to have.
I think Nathan will tell us that too. Yeah. Nathan?
Yeah, I think that everyone forgets that in the conversation is that VAR has been around for a number of years, but at a global level and how it's sort of implemented at World Cups into AFC and then into local competitions, it requires a varying level of intervention based on how it's applied. So I think in that sense, it's interesting. It probably is a talking point in every conversation I have in this role, is that's the first thing we jump to. So I'm happy this is about the fifth thing we've got to before we got to this.
I figured I'd give it some time. I thought I'd give it some time.
But I think overall, from our sense, we've seen a number of decisions where intervention has been a really good thing. Where we would like to take VAR, and I think it's no secret, we've said this on a number of occasions, both publicly and to the media briefing, we are working hard with the MLS and the Dutch around live audio. We feel the fan should hear what the referees are saying. Our team have no fear on that. Our referees embrace that open conversation, that open dialogue, because, as you mentioned, people want to know what's going on. There's my perspective on what VAR is. There's the referee's perspective, and then there's the fan, the player, the coach, etc.
Correct.
But we feel that one of the key openings to the understanding of VAR is having live communications.
I mean, it must be, trying to put myself in your shoes for a moment, it must be a really unique challenge to have to contend with. I mean, I'm speaking from personal experience, someone who's indecisive at the best of times, can see lots of different perspectives, and to try and create, black and white outcomes over refereeing situations that can have many shades of grey within them, to try and make that technology work as best it can. It's not an easy fix, and it's not an overnight fix. I'm sure you'd be well aware of that.
Yeah, we have no doubt. And I think it's the hardest balance I think people are going to accept, is that finding the flow of the game versus perfection are not something that go hand in hand with each other. They are things that conflict and compete with each other at times. So I think you're right. There are certain situations, like the denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity in the Macarthur-Sydney game, that from a refereeing sense, our team will look at that and go, that's black and white to us. If he is not fouled, he is running towards the penalty area with the ability to shoot on goal, that is an opportunity. Where the fan would say the distance is a lot different for us. Is there some doubt? Why would there be intervention? But when the refereeing team see that offence, there's only been one answer to everyone we showed that clip to. So I think that's to tie it back to what George's point was earlier around the media briefing. The more information we can give and the more understanding of how we're looking at situations, how we address those technical decisions, then it can only be a good thing for the game, for people to be understanding people's position.
Nathan, I appreciate the time that you're giving us. I also want you to if you can, to give the audience, the broader audience across FNR, and we stream just about everywhere these days, which is just another marvellous thing about technology. I want you to explain just the sort of scrutiny that each and every referee has to face, not only during the game, but on the Monday, when you guys do the reviews and so on. Could you just take us through just a bit of an eye opener to the procedures? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. So in terms of my department reporting into me, I have 4 part-time elite referee coaches who are experts in their field and have refereed at the A-League or higher over an extended period, men's and women's. So they would review every performance. Each one of them is appointed to a match on the weekend. They will observe the referee from a football understanding perspective, how they allowed the game to flow, the key incidents which happen, penalties, red cards, things that decide the outcomes of the matches. But then the deeper dissection of the performance is there is a data analyst or a match day observer appointed at every game, coding every decision for us. So we are tracking accuracy rates, we're picking up trends, we understand the clips. So from a weekend's worth of performance, we would have 450 clips from the round of fixtures, just A-League men's, and they will be marked as correct or incorrect. So we've got a huge portfolio, and then what happens then is the referee and the 2 assistant referees and the VAR will book an appointment with the coach who watched their game, and they will step through those clips to work through where they feel the performance should be enhanced or maintained for the next appointment.
So you see, Lachie, it's not just, they've called the game, it was either a good performance or a poor performance. They get tested week in, week out.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all.
No, I'm very keen for Nathan not only to tell us, but to give us a sense of just how much work the APL has put in and how much the referees have joined in. And, of course, we've got the Liberty A-League Women's starting very, very soon. There's one if I may, Nathan, there's one thing I've noticed from the early days of the W League and the A League and the way it's progressed, as has most of the football around the world. The one thing I don't see in our women's game is too much simulation, if any. How do you educate the referees to go, yeah, look, he's just playing games, look on or look or promote them or encourage them to just get on with the game?
Look, I think if I solve that problem, George, I'd probably...
You said the same thing. I asked you the same question. I asked you the same question last week, and you answered the same way.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting better at the answer, right?
Yeah, true.
But I think
true.
In this sense, it's a really hard challenge for the referees. Simulation, it's a global problem.
Yep.
Again, it's not. I don't think we're universally seeing it in the A League week to week. We're seeing it. We're seeing it at a global stage, and people are getting better at it. There's no doubt about that. The referees, I feel for most part, when the referees trust their instincts on the field, they know it when they see it, and we've asked them to take a hard line when they do see it. When they see someone clearly trying to deceive the referee to change the outcome of the game through a penalty, we ask them to take firm action on that type of behaviour. Again, this is actually one of the reasons that VAR was initially implemented, because it is becoming so hard on the field at speed to get that 100% right. So, these are types of incidents which VAR was initially brought in for.
Now, tell me, with the penalties, we're seeing more and more penalty shootouts and penalties being taken, and I don't have a problem with that. But can you clarify once and for all the role of the goalkeeper? They can do the various moves left and right on the line, but they cannot move off the line, can they?
No, they must have a foot on the line when the ball is kicked. They can be off the line when they save the ball.
So they can dance.
You can dance side to side. Yeah, we've seen a couple of goalkeepers perfect that in recent months.
Yes.
But ultimately, as long as when the ball is struck, one foot or one toe effectively is on the line, some part of their foot must be on some part of the line.
So does VAR observe this, or is it the linesman and in combination with the referee calling the game?
Well, in competitions with VAR, that's a mandate for them to look at as well.
Right.
But then, one of the challenges, George, is obviously trying to find that exact frame. And when you're starting to split hairs, it's talking about clear intervention. So what we're looking for is clear intervention. So there's a clear distance between the foot and the line. And then ultimately there's an impact on the shot. To be fair, that's the biggest thing. There's an impact.
What's the next thing that the head of referees would love to see as we come back from the World Cup and we get back into the season proper? And of course, with every passing day, we get closer and closer and closer to a Women's World Cup down under.
Yeah, look, it's a great question. One of the other great parts of my job is working with the community space to try and grow more interest in refereeing. And you're right, there's a World Cup in less than a few weeks' time that's kicking off in Qatar. And then a home World Cup, which is, one of the biggest sporting events, if not the biggest sporting event since the Olympics in 2000. There's huge interest in the game, and we would love to see more match officials and more people take up refereeing to help service the game's growth. I think at the moment we're sitting at 10,000 registered referees across the country, a little bit over 10,000 registered referees. That number needs to grow exponentially, and we're ambitious about growing that. We feel like it's a really good opportunity for people to be involved in the game that they love. But with the excitement of, 2 World Cups in such a short window, we want to see more people. And that's where our attention will turn in the next couple of weeks as we head into a recruitment drive, as member feds head into registration periods. That's where we're actually advertising for a new role, which is an engagement and experience lead for Football Australia. And their primary role is to help the member federations create a great experience and a really welcoming environment for match officials at a community level.
If people want to know more, how do they reach out to you?
They can head to the Football Australia website, and there's a section on refereeing, and under that there'll be some courses in your local area, or head to your local member federation as well. So if you're in Victoria, Football Victoria or Football New South Wales, etc., around the country, there'll be heaps of details. Yeah.
I'm glad, Nathan, that you've brought up the sort of community level of refereeing. It's something we've certainly discussed a lot with a number of different people on this program, and oftentimes it is, as you said, regarding the need to have more referees and bring new referees into the fold. Is there an element of also needing to maybe bring back some people who have been a referee at some point but have stepped away for one reason or another? Because a lot of the stories we've heard at a community level are about how tough it can be, especially for young referees, in the face of some spectators at games, even at a junior level. So what I'm asking is, how is there an intent to bring those kind of people back into the fold? And also, how do you ride that challenge and sell that challenge to new people that want to step in, that challenge of, feedback from spectators at community games?
Yeah, not constructive feedback at times. Let's be fair. So I think it's a really interesting point, because we were having this conversation today within our department, and the benefits of what we've seen as collective, in refereeing. I started in 2001 in a little association called the Hunter Valley Football Referees Association out the back of Newcastle, where my parents were based, and I did it because I thought it was a better opportunity than working casually on a Saturday afternoon. It was football. I could do it around my playing. And then as my playing ability did not improve, so that's the track. My refereeing ability seemed to slowly improve across that time. And what it actually did was give me a series of skills that I probably wasn't equipped as a 16 or 17-year-old at the time to develop. So leadership, talking to people older than me, making rapid decisions. It gave me a different skill set, and I feel like we spend a lot of times on the negative experience, which is a real experience, and we have to acknowledge and work on that within the community space. But there are so many positive experiences. I went back to my old association on Saturday night for their 50th year dinner, saw a lot of faces I haven't seen for 11 or 12 years, and they're still refereeing. They're not refereeing NPL anymore, and they're not refereeing elite football anymore, but they're still contributing to the game in a whole different way as people are coming through. So I think, there is that side that we have to address, and we have to work as a footballing community. That requires the players, clubs, coaches, volunteers to try and solve this problem universally. But once we get past that, it's also about selling the great experience of being involved in a collective that are trying to do something that we're all trying to do, which is make the game better.
The thing that we need to address too is the APL. They've done an interesting job from day one, saying this is the pathway they were going to pursue, and of course, Football Australia has its responsibilities. Now, I understand APL are very keen to work with the referees to make sure that we do get that message out in a better fashion or in a clearer way. Are there initiatives just around the corner that we're likely to see before the end of the year, or will we have to wait for 23 and the Women's World Cup?
No, I think you'll start seeing from Football Australia a clearer messaging about becoming a referee. In terms of the look and feel and that experience piece, we're starting to see it at the APL level now, where referees are taking a stance on being surrounded.
Yep.
Referees are being approached in an unprofessional manner. Referees have taken a stance on that.
Good.
And our professional game referees understand the role models that they are for community football. So they set the tone because it's the most visible part of the game. So they're our referees, as I said, I think during the media brief, they're great people. They want to contribute, and they know that trying to inspire the next one of them starts with their role at the professional level.
Well, and I think that's one thing that gets really lost in the divide sometimes between the fans who watch the game and the people who officiate it.
Yeah.
And this is certainly true of my experience of just bumping into referees in the Victorian National Premier League and everything. People who are refereeing games care about football, and they care about doing the game justice as much, if not more, than you do sitting at home watching. And that I think demystifying the people who are responsible for doing that is really important. And I think to that end, Nathan, you deserve to be commended for the briefings and the approaches that you're taking to those sorts of things.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is the biggest thing. We're all humans, so we've all got, majority of them have a day job outside of refereeing in the APL. We've got a few full-time professional referees, but the majority of them work, balance their family, do everything that they want to do, and they keep turning up because they want to leave the game in a better place than when they started. And I think that's everyone in the same position. I'll probably leave just here and go and do the kindy pickup on the way. So everybody is real, and that's, I think, the biggest thing. And, the myth around referees didn't play, so they don't understand the game. Majority of them did play at a reasonably high level. And they understand the game, and they just chose a different pathway. And I think that's probably another myth that needs debunking, is that just because at 13 or 14 you started refereeing doesn't mean you don't continue playing. But you're developing your playing knowledge while you're refereeing, so you get a different perspective on the game.
Are we seeing more and more young women putting their hand up wanting to referee?
Yes, we are seeing more women and girls, George, put up their hand to become referees, and we've got some great role models from the ALW side. You've got Kate Jacobitz, Casey Rybelt, Sarah Ho, Joanne Kashaktis, Meisel Park, all of these, and Lara Lee from Queensland. They're all outstanding people that have been in the system for a long time, have cut their teeth in the A-League W, and have been recently under-20s Women's World Cup, under-17s Women's World Cup. Where our women's program has been globally strong for a number of years. So I feel like, there's a great pathway in refereeing, and I think we're starting to see across the member federations an influx in women and girls who want to be involved.
Before I let you go, I saw something impactful and reinforced your discussions with us a couple of weeks ago, and it was an A-League game on the weekend, and VAR called the referee across to have a look at the screen. They went and had a look at the screen, and they kept their decision. And later in the game, they went again and they changed their decision, or they reaffirmed what they were thinking. So again, two different instances of using VAR, and it showed me that the first time the referee was adamant that what he had seen indeed transpired, and the second time he wasn't sure but just wanted to get a second view, and that reaffirmed that indeed the information he was getting from his assistant was on the money. Is that more and more what you're wanting from your officials, that teamwork?
Absolutely. I mean, they've got to work together as a team of 4 on field, and then our off field team in the VAR to make it as seamless as possible. Now, the VAR may recommend a review, and sometimes the on-field referee will stick with that decision if the VAR footage shows them no different. And the criticism they may cop is, well, you saw it, why would you come and look at it? You already made the right decision.
Right.
Now, sometimes at speed, they may not get the full picture. Correct. And the VAR either clarifies or declarifies their position. So, and I think that's a lot of things. A lot of it relies to the communication between the referee to the VAR to whether a review is triggered.
100%. Nathan, thank you once again. Let's hope we can do this on a semi-regular basis and talk about the sorts of things that are happening and some of the initiatives and indeed some of the progress that you will be making as we get closer and closer to a home World Cup, as you touched on. It'll be the biggest event in the country since 2000, no doubt about it. We've had a procession of World Cups, whether it was the Rugby League, the Rugby Union, the cricket and so on, but there really is the biggest tournament in the world is the Men's World Cup, which is happening in Qatar, and it will be the Women's World Cup happening in both New Zealand and Australia come June of next year. Thank you very much. Continued good work. And make sure you make sure you don't miss the pickup, all right?
No,
we don't want to create problems at home.
No, thank you. Thanks very much for having me, and always happy to join to discuss anything.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Nathan Magill, the head of referees from Football Australia, just giving us a sense of just how much work they're putting in, what it means to them, to all of them. And one of the things that we discussed with Nathan in that media whip around was, who referees the game? And Nathan told us at the time it was the senior referee. Yeah? It's not about being re-refereed. They're all there to assist And that's the most exciting thing that came through. And the fact that there's so much scrutiny and so much work that goes on week in, week out to make sure the intervention that you see at each and every game is as consistent as possible. And hey, players make mistakes. If the referee makes mistakes, we shouldn't come down on them like the proverbial pile driver. But we do, because that's human nature.
Yeah, but again, like Nathan was saying before, that obfuscates, or the way we react often obfuscates the fact that these people... No one wants to make the wrong decision.
No.
Everyone who's making a decision as a referee thinks they're making the right call.
Correct.
They aren't always in people's view, and mistakes can be made. But they want to make the right calls, and they care about the game. Like I won't name the referee, but I remember about June last year, I decided to go... I decided to go to a South Melbourne game.
Yep.
Right. Having done
at Lakeside.
At Lakeside, having done a game at Langwarrin early in the day. Drove up there, and someone taps me on the shoulder and says hello, and it was a referee who referees in the NPL quite regularly. They came with their refereeing team, not because they were refereeing the game. They went as spectators, and they had come from Epping Stadium where they had refereed an NPL 3 game.
Yep.
And he called his wife and said, "Can you look after the kids? We want to go to the NPL." Referees, someone who's just doing it for money or just doing it because they want to have some sort of influence.
No, they love the game.
Don't then turn up to the NPL afterwards. Like these people care, and more people need to, I think, recognise and respect that. But part of that process, I think, is demystifying the referee, demystifying the process of thought that goes into refereeing. And I think to that end, very pleasing to hear the kind of things Nathan was discussing in relation to VAR and the intent from the APL, the intent from the MLS to have those refereeing discussions, which I believe in real time there's an IFAB rule that means they can't be broadcast live. But the fact that they want to change that is a huge bonus.
Absolutely.
Even if we don't always agree with the logic, if we at least have an understanding of the logic, that helps so much.
Oh, look.
You couple that with the media briefings. We need more of this, and those sorts of steps I think are very promising.
We touched on the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. We mentioned it during that discussion. I was part of the working crew at the MCG when the Olympic tournament, the football tournament, happened down under, happened in Victoria. And we had Italy, Australia. So, 97,000, 99,000, whatever it was. And I can remember we called for a replay. That is, the media crew called for the replay. And it went up on the screen. And we got a phone call within seconds from FIFA telling us to void any future decisions to showcase a replay. Their attitude was, this is 2000 we're talking about, so 22 years ago, their attitude was, international game, no replays. No pressure on the referees. You let them get on with it. So the world's changing. And to hear Nathan saying, hey, as you touched on, they're working to make sure that decision making is made clearer to you and I at the ground and you and I at home is fantastic.
But also, we're so quick to criticise that I think we should also, even if it is through gritted teeth, praise the steps that are made 100%. That are right. Yep. And even if this was a briefing that is, one that members of the media are only privy to. And I think it would be, the next step is it would be great to, at the very least, make recordings of that available to the general public who are interested.
Yep.
That is still a huge step in the right direction, because most of the time people aren't as annoyed with the decision itself so much as they are that they don't understand why the decision came to be.
The referees have made it very clear, as has Football Australia. They're open to that opportunity. So, and again, you saw how easy it was to get Nathan to join us and how open he was and how much they will continue to propagate that thinking and to give us a better idea of what's happening.
Long may it continue.
Long may it continue. And speaking of long may it continue, our program each and every week is brought to you by GIS Global Institute of Sport. If you don't know who they are or what they do, they provide a master's degree in football. And Lachie Flanagan has put his hand up. He's very keen. In fact, they have campuses not only in the UK at places like Wembley, famous home of football, and of course the Etihad Stadium. But they've also got global hubs now in Miami, in New York, in places like Atlanta, which has got a magnificent new stadium that just defies description. Toronto, and of course, the thing that pleases Lachie more than anything else is right here in Melbourne.
Here in little old Melbourne as well.
Brand new from February of next year. Students will be able to study a football master's degree online with live sessions delivered in the early evening. And we're talking Australian Eastern Summertime, aren't we?
Yeah, and they've also got quite a lot of, I mean, the one you're referring to there is the Masters of Football Coaching and Analysis, which is done online over the space of a week here in Melbourne. But there's also, like, if you can think of, if you're in marketing, if you're in communications, media, business, sort of the health area as well. A lot of the time in their abroad campuses as well, the GIS offer a lot of, extension, masters, bachelor's degrees as well in those areas. So if you're, dead set on a football specific or a sports specific career, this is a great way to show that to someone.
If you want to know more, as Lachie has intimated, pardon me, it's gis.sport/FNR.
Yes.
Is that how it works?
Indeed it does.
I love that /. Yeah, very good.
Good fun.
Let's take a break. And when we come back, I want to touch with you some of the selections that Arnie offered up and the composition of the Socceroos as they prepare to head off for Qatar.
Well, let's do it on the other side of the break.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. We're just decompressing after that interview with the head of referees from Football Australia, Nathan Magill. You enjoyed it?
Oh, very much so.
Gave you an insight into some of the things that have been happening.
I did. I hope I didn't.
And you're hoping?
I'm hoping to hear more. I hope I also didn't annoy him with my VAR-related questions. Last thing I want to do is put a referee's nose out of joint.
You and I touched on, and I noticed that you were deep in conversation with Procure before we started the hour of State of Our Football Nation, and you guys were right in the middle of some very, very warm discussions about certain players, certain selections. And what was my response to you at the time? Chill.
Yeah. Well,
let them play.
Look, it's easy to say that, but it's a World Cup. It's not. It's it's very hard for me to chill at the best of times. Least of all when it's Australia on the world stage.
Okay. Out of 10, overview. What have you made of it?
I think so. For those who might be interested and didn't catch it, myself and Oscar Rutherford on the Oz Football Hour did a 4-hour-long deep dive into the squad from front to back.
That's why I'm allowing you to give me a little overview.
Yeah, if you want a full scope, make sure you tune into that. But
they can check the podcast.
Absolutely. But what I really liked Oscar's point when he was reviewing the squad, which is there is a lot to really like and be excited by in this squad. A lot of really feel-good narratives and Graham Arnold may be embracing a bit more risk than perhaps we've seen from him in past squad selections.
Yep.
And I think that should be the focus, even though there are a few instances and a few selections where equally you can perhaps question the logic that Graham Arnold or the goalkeeper coach or whoever's been involved.
I try and avoid all that
has
discussion.
applied to the selections. Why? I think for the most part, though, it was a positive
everything
squad.
is subjective. Yeah, the essence of every team is there are players that you'll like. There are players you have. A love relationship with that you've known them since they were 14 and 15, and you cannot let go. Whether you mean to or not, you can't let go. Now, you as a commentator, I throw it a lot more on you. I say it's very important for you to stay above the fray. Don't settle for the noise, the white noise. Try and rise above it, because this is how you can rein in the conversation and help to steer it in a meaningful way so we get something productive at the other end. We want this group of young men and their families, especially at this moment, before a ball is kicked, to be super proud of what's happened. Yeah. There will be disappointment. Of course there will be. Anytime anybody misses out on anything that's very special or historic, there's going to be enormous pain.
Yeah, of course. And no one's ignorant to that. I think it's more sometimes the manner and the method that's led to some of the people being disappointed.
You should work in the media more often.
Yeah, perhaps so.
You would have heard some wonderful stuff.
I'll throw it, and as I want to restate, I do think there's a great many positives to come out of this squad. I mean, the sort of feel-good story of Jason Cummings getting his selection, his chance. Garang Kuol, of course, everyone's talked about how good an introduction he is, and I can't wait to see him rip it up on the world stage potentially.
And what about the money that's going to be handed down through the benefits scheme that FIFA allots to the clubs who generate the players who will play in the World Cup?
It's perfect for me because the vast majority of the money is going to the A-League men's and it's going to the Scottish Premiership, which are the two leagues that I pay the most attention to.
Yeah, well.
And Hearts, my beloved Hearts, are going to make a princely sum from three of their players representing Australia.
Are you excited to see young Nathaniel Atkinson?
I'm excited to see Nathaniel Atkinson.
Not a bad thing for a young boy from Tasmania.
Yeah, it's not a bad effort at all. I'm excited. I'm more excited to see the fact that Cam Devlin has made a late run out of the frame, one cap against New Zealand, and then bang, going to the World Cup and crying as a result.
He was in tears. So much was he moved by the call to arms, by the phone call by Graham Arnold. That's terrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
But equally, there will be young men and others and their families who will be feeling it. And you've heard it in this Twitter sphere. You've heard the lament, the disappointment, and the shock in some instances. But that's the nature of this world of ours. There'll be people. It's like Oscar time. I saw that movie. It didn't rate. I can't believe they thought it was the movie of the year.
I agree with you, George. But surely, as a former goalkeeper yourself,
yes,
you got to have some sympathy for Mitch Langerak.
Mitch has been a marvellous professional. He's done a fabulous job, and he's deserved more than the time he's been afforded playing for the Socceroos. I would have loved him to be our first choice keeper.
I mean, he came out of he was asked to come out of retirement.
Okay,
now he's already being picked.
Let me just run that line past you again. I would have loved him to be our first choice keeper. I can't hold it against him that there are people around him who care very much for him and are angry. Right? So be it. Hey, let me just tell you, there are people I know who've worked a lifetime and deserved an award or deserved an Oscar or something and didn't get it. They deserved a role at 60 Minutes, and the executive team chose someone else. It's the nature of this beast when you've got so many wonderful people knocking on the door and saying, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. We sometimes need to temper our frustration and our angst and look at it as, is it Otto? Who said, who did you work with the other day and did the hour long?
I thought you meant Oscar. I thought you were referring to Otto Rehagel or something. I was like,
Otto Rehagel. Now there's a
He's probably got some pearls of wisdom.
Otto Rehagel proved that you can take a disparate group of rebels and make one coherent team for a short period of time.
No one's been able to do it since.
No, but doesn't that make the magic and doesn't that make the effort even more exciting? The fact that he went to areas and he tapped on their psyche.
Yeah, 100%.
And he woke them up to play in a tournament that no one imagined that they would win a game.
Yes, I will say.
Guess what? They won the tournament.
I will say as well, George, another pleasing thing. Two players who have battled with significant injury in the last couple of months, or for Harry Souttar, it's the last year. But him and Kai Rolls, who are both. What's really pleasing for me is that since they've come back into the playing fold, they've been able to seemingly recover in a very short space of time, where they haven't played a lot of games, but Kai Rolls made his return for Hearts against Motherwell off the bench on Monday night, Australia time, and within a couple of days from making his return from injury, has completed a full 90, and by all accounts, a pretty impressive full 90, albeit in a loss to Rangers. And Harry Souttar, again, from what I've been told, had a great game and a full 90 on return for Stoke, the senior side.
And look very good. Can I just say to you, Harry will make the Australian defence so much different by being there.
So what percentage chance, George? This is a question that someone else raised with me earlier, but I'll put it to you. Mm-hmm. The two centre-back, I think for the most part, the squad
selects itself.
I think the midfield three is a lock to be Moy, Irvine and Hrustic. Front three, most people expect it to be Duke, Boyle, Magill. Do you see any difference in that front three? I think you can make a pretty...
I think they'll all get time. I think they'll all get time. They'll start, but I think you'll see more impact. Look...
Is it possible we see a McLaren start against France?
I don't know about starting.
Lachie?
Look, I put it to you that with the arrival of this new season where we saw 5 players being available on the sidelines to be brought in, I now see the game, just as I watched another game that irritates me enormously. It was called the AFL, and they brought in this thing called interchange. I actually resent it. I think it's eliminated one of the things that was so special about the game, and that was called attrition. You know, you would battle, you'd work through the first 2 quarters, and the third quarter was the championship quarter because you would get over your opponent. You would worn them down. Now, anytime you take a vital part of any contest away, artificially, it corrupts the game. So I don't want interchange in football, but I believe that by having access to 5 replacements, five subs, you can change the tactics. You can play a game very differently. And we saw it recently, both coaches, or 2 or 3 different coaches in the EPL, chose to play different ways because they had access to players when they had gone a man down.
Of course.
Wasn't available 2 years ago or 5 years ago. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the players get time. How much time? I can't vouch.
But what percentage chance would you give of potentially Harry Souttar and Kai Rolls coming out of long-term injury, lodging their first full 90s, to actually be the starting centre back
50-50.
50-50.
Yeah.
I'm
you don't pick a 6'7" who's been out for a year.
I think he's almost guaranteed. The question is who goes with him. But I think Graham Arnold really rates Kai Rolls, and I think that's a fair assessment.
I haven't seen anyone let us down thus far.
So
let's see. They're going to settle. They know Qatar because they've played a number of neutral games there. And let me tell you, everything is in order. Those stadiums are incredible. And if you haven't had that tour of Qatar yet, there are a couple of wonderful short docos worth a look. And, of course, we've heard there are a number of friends of ours who've already booked their tickets, and they'll be leaving shortly if they haven't already. So it'll be very exciting. Is Adriano going?
I would imagine so. It's much shorter of a trip for him than it is for people who are going.
And don't forget, he is a beIN Sport boy.
It's true.
That's where he started his media career. So it's been
of sorts.
Yes, it's a very, very wonderful little circle of life that he left not quite in the inner sanctum, and he's returning as a star. So that's terrific. I wish him well. Hey, what do you make of a couple of Liverpool players and a couple of Manchester players who are going as commentators, and they've been given short shrift by some of their fellow pundits, calling them hypocrites for turning up?
Well, I think there's one who I really have a bone to pick with.
Big bone?
In this
Tyrannosaurus Rex bone?
Look, I think if I recognise that it is not an easy decision, and that everyone who is involved in this World Cup in some way, shape or form, as a spectator, as a fan, as a player, as a person who's just watching on from home, is having to accept some level of moral compromise to do so. And I don't envy anyone in that position.
Let me make it even more brutal for you. If we had chosen you as the FNR representative to go and call the games, would you have gone?
No, you can't.
Oh, yes, I can.
No, we're about to finish.
No, yes,
we're about to come to
I can.
We're about to come to the end of the hour, George. It will take me an hour more to answer that question.
Yes or no? It's a yes or no question.
But you're asking me
yes
now.
Yes or no?
But it's a
see how hard life can be.
But it's a question in it's a question in bad faith, because I'm a 22-year-old with not a lot to my name. If you offer me the chance to commentate a World Cup, I'm probably going to say yes. But,
thank you.
But let's
no, we haven't got time.
Pin down who I'm talking about. No. Before we go, let's pin down who I'm talking about. Gary Neville has been so outspoken with social justice issues, and in many cases he's been absolutely bang on the money.
Correct.
With the things that he chooses to take issue with.
Correct.
Particularly, he's been a vocal critic of the Tory party.
He'll be there.
And he's been really strong. But he's going to be there, and he is taking money to promote a tournament that he previously has spoken out against.
Rest assured, there's enough money to go around.
I don't know.
So getting back to you, would you be the FNR head caller at the World Cup in Qatar if we said yes?
Perhaps so. But I, as a 22-year-old, I'm not in a position I can say no to that sort of opportunity. Gary Neville is a legend of Manchester United. He's a hugely successful pundit.
You go and call
He's a millionaire.
the game.
He owns
You'll be a legend afterwards.
Club. Sure, but Gary Neville is in a position where he can say no if he wants to. He can afford to take the moral high ground because it doesn't affect his bottom line that much. And I think it is a colossal shame, and he has tarnished his reputation as a defender of the little guy by taking money to speak at that tournament. Even if he's planning to speak out on certain things, maybe that changes my mind, but I don't think he's going to, and I think he's compromised. That to me is a shame.
I'm just preparing a text to send to you regarding the trip to Qatar. Catch you next week. Tonight's State of Our Football Nation, of course, proudly brought to you by GIS, the Global Institute of Sport. You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.